Hey guys, it's Josh here from the Final Whistle Pod. Today we're going to have our first basketball video on the channel. We're going to be talking about some off-season moves. Before we get into our actual top 5 ranking, we're going to go through some honorable mentions, some smaller moves that I liked, and some that might be a little controversial that they missed out on my list. So let's dive into it. So we're gonna get started with the smaller moves. Some smaller moves that I liked. Josh Green to the Hornets. I think he's a good player. He's a good effort player. He can get out in transition. Shoots the three ball at a solid clip, maybe around like 37%. I think he's a good team defender. He's someone that could blossom in Charlotte, and I think if they want to move forward, start the rebuild with Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, I think he's somebody that could be a part of that possibly. I think with the addition of Klay Thompson, maybe he was just a little bit excess. They moved him in that deal. So, yeah, I think he could have a solid year in Charlotte this year. I also really liked Dyson Daniels to the Hawks. I've been a big fan of Dyson Daniels on the defensive end. He's fantastic. We've already seen what he's given the Pelicans on the defensive end, but I think he's also shown some nice flashes as a playmaker. So hopefully in Atlanta he can shine, whether it's an off-the-bench role, if he's starting, because he's very strong defensively. He could be strong defensively next to Trae Young. I think he can really shine in Atlanta. I think he has a lot of potential that could show more in Atlanta than it could in New Orleans. So I'm excited for that move. I also like Monte Morris to the Suns. While Book was doing a strong job at point guard, look, I'm not going to doubt Devin Booker's ability to adapt to that position as he did last year. He did very well. I think that having a real NBA point guard is always very helpful. I think Monte Morris can do that role effectively for them, and I think that yeah, while he struggled last year, I feel like that could be down to injury as well as just playing in Detroit. I don't think that was the best situation for him. And I think that if he's back in a more positive environment, stays healthy, I think he can have similar years to what he did in Denver for the Nuggets those years ago. So yeah, I think I like that move a good bit. Kyle Anderson to the Warriors. As a Warriors fan, I really like this move. I've always been a fan of slow-mo as a player. But yeah, I think he has good length. He has good rebounding ability. He could be a good depth piece in those forward areas for the Warriors, who have struggled at times with depth there. Now we're going to have Kevon Looney, Draymond Green, TJD, Trish Jackson Davis, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, and Kyle Anderson. So I think that's some solid depth. He's a solid interior defender, and I think he's an underrated playmaker as well. Moving on to another move I liked that some might not have anywhere near their list. Tobias Harris. I think Tobias Harris is still, if he's going to be on a team like the Pistons, I think he can still put up solid numbers. I don't think the contract is too bad, especially in this market that they couldn't move the contract. I think if he has a solid stretch in Detroit, he could be a trade prospect for Detroit and get them some more assets. Another move that missed out on my list is DeJounte Murray. If they don't move BI, I think this is a very interesting move. I'm sure they will, though, hopefully. And I think that if the Pelicans do not figure out the center position, this move is not really going to be effective. Daniel Tice is not the answer, unless the guy that they drafted, Yves Missi, I think is his name, unless he pans out immediately, I think, which is very unlikely, by the way, but I think they should look to bring in a center, whether that's in a trade with BI or through free agency. I think they need to look to move to bring in a center. Another move that I liked was KCP to the Magic. This one missed out on my list just because I think they were better in the offseason. But I think KCP is one of the best role players in the NBA. Really, 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 really good defender. 46% from the field, 40% from three. I think the money isn't bad. I think it was 3 years, $66 million. I don't think that's a bad contract, especially in the market of today's contracts. I think that the Magic, they were in for PG. Some rumors came out. As soon as PG said he wanted to go elsewhere, they pivoted immediately. They made a strong signing, and I think that is one of the best defensive backcourts in the NBA with Jalen Suggs and KCP. So I think the Magic could take another step this year. I could possibly see them even winning a playoff series, like a Cleveland type team this year, and not losing that series. Another move that I liked was Buddy Hield to the Warriors. I think he's a solid Clay replacement. They've really been shooting, since Clay came back from the injury, they've really been shooting around the same clip from 3. Buddy Hield shot around 37 to 38. Clay shot around 37, I think. So I think that's a really solid replacement. Obviously, he's on a cheaper deal than Clay is in Dallas, or cheaper deal than what Clay wanted with the Warriors. But I think it's a solid replacement. I think, yes, you could look at it, last year was the worst year of Buddy Hield's career, but that could be down to, I think this was the first time in his career he was on a playoff team with Indy and Philly. So I think that could just be down to lack of opportunity. And if the Warriors aren't able to bring in Lauri Markkanen, I think his volume could come back up, and he could be back to what we saw in Sacramento in those earlier years in Indiana. I think next, I'm going to say Klay Thompson was also a good move by Dallas. I think that brings him more shooting. And the thing with Klay was people were saying, oh, he's playing with Steph Curry. If he was on a different team, would his shot quality go down? Would it be tougher for him? Well, he's not going to have to worry about that, because with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving on the same team, I think his shot quality might even go up, because those are two players that are at least more ball dominant than him, a lot more ball dominant, which can lead to much better looks for him. I think he shot around 37% last year from 3. I think on the Mavericks he could get back up to that 40%. I don't think 3 years, $50 million is a bad deal at all for a Klay Thompson type player. He's still, from what I watched as a Warriors fan, I still believe that he's an average defender, especially against those slower small forwards / power forwards. He held his own very well now. Against 1s and 2s, he's not the guy that he was before. He gets blown by a lot, but I think against bigger players, he's a very solid defender, and he's not a liability defensively per se. So now we're moving on to moves that people might be shocked missed out on my list. To start, we're going to start with DeMar Derozan. DeMar Derozan missed out on my list because Sacramento is a team that already has Domantas Sabonis as well as De'Aaron Fox. Those are two players who play on the ball, and DeMar Derozan is also a player who plays on the ball. Usually I don't mind whatever 3-ball dominant players, one of them can play off, but De'Aaron is a point guard. He should have the ball in his hands. Domantas Sabonis should have the ball in his hands, creating for players like Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, but DeMar Derozan does not shoot the ball well from 3. Yes, he still offers you 24 points per game. Yes, the money isn't bad at 3 years, $74 million, but DeMar is not a 3-point shooter. He shoots around 33% from 3, 32% if I'm not mistaken. I don't think this is a good fit for their team. I think that the Kings' offensive efficiency already dropped off. If you remember in the 22-23 season, they were the #1 offense of all time. Obviously, the Celtics broke their record this past year, but then they dropped all the way down to 20th in offensive efficiency. And while DeMar Derozan is a 24-point-per-game scorer, I don't think he's the answer for that, because of the way he shoots the 3 and his basically lack of ability to play off the ball. Secondly, I'm going to say Mikal Bridges to the Knicks. Now, obviously, Mikal Bridges is a very good NBA player. He averaged 19 a game the last year, shooting about 37% from 3. We saw that second half of the 22-23 season where he was popping off with the Nets, averaging around 24 points per game, and that's probably just not him. But I think giving up 5 first-round picks for a player of his caliber is a little bit crazy, even though the market is more inflated than before. I do not think Mikal Bridges is worth 5 first-round picks. I think they kind of gave up their future for somebody who's I wouldn't say a role player. Maybe if a role player is a really, really high-end role player. I think his role with the Knicks is going to diminish. Probably averages around 15. Gives them good defense, of course. Not only did they give up 5 first-round picks, they also gave up Bogdanovic, who I think is a very solid NBA player. I think he might even be a slightly better offensive player than Mikal Bridges at this point. Obviously, the defense with Mikal Bridges is fantastic, but I think 5 first-round picks plus Bojan is not a great deal. So let's get on to the moves that did make my top 5. So now we're on to our top 5 NBA offseason moves. There's one pick I don't think people are going to agree with, but it's my personal opinion. So starting at number 5 is Isaiah Hartenstein to the Oklahoma City Thunder. This was a team who struggled a lot with rebounding. In the playoffs, I was watching them. Rebounding killed them like crazy. I remember they just couldn't grab one. Chet was getting bullied inside, especially in that Mavericks series. They just could not grab a rebound sometimes. During the regular season especially, bottom 5 team in rebounding, which It's just not acceptable for a team who wants to go where they want to go. So I think bringing in Isaiah Hartenstein, who's an 8-rebound-a-game guy on less than 30 minutes a game, or that's what he was in New York, I think he can bring a lot of that to them. I feel like he's an underrated playmaker out of the post. He can rebound. He can block shots. He's a strong interior defender. So I think that's a great move for them. Number 4, surprisingly, Mikal Bridges did not make the list because 5 first-round picks for a role player is absolutely crazy to me. But the haul that the Nets did make my 4 spot. I think that the Nets being able to recoup some of the future they lost in that failed Kyrie, KD, Harden era is fantastic. I think 5 first-round picks plus a decent NBA player who could get you more picks in the future and Bogdanovic is a great haul. I mean, some people were saying, oh my goodness, the Nets completely destroyed their future with that era, no championships, no nothing. Yes, they did, but now Marks has redeemed himself just a little bit with this trade of Mikal Bridges. 5 first-round picks. I think that's, to be honest, really a great haul for a player of Mikal Bridges caliber. Yeah, so I definitely liked the haul that they got. I think this can help them a lot in the future because before this, they really did not have a future. In every NBA draft, somebody had their picks, but I think getting back some picks now could help them a lot. At number 3, I have Alex Caruso to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I personally think this Bulls trade is one of the craziest trades I've ever seen. A player like Josh Giddey, right? A player I used to be a big fan of until this year where he was struggling a lot. He couldn't shoot from 3. He looked incredibly slow on defense, and he really just looked like he didn't fit the team at all. I mean, my brother, he's not a fan of Josh Giddey. I was always trying to convince him, but this year I couldn't even convince myself. And when they started bringing him off the bench in the playoffs, it didn't work. And now the organization tried to tell him that they want him off the bench, and he wouldn't have it, which I think personally is absolutely ridiculous. There's no way Josh Giddey is someone who should be upset about being a bench player on the championship team after the display he showed last year. So I think getting Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso, or getting Alex Caruso for Josh Giddey straight up after the year Josh Giddey had is fantastic. Alex Caruso is, if not the best, a top 3 perimeter defender in the NBA. He shoots the ball well, 47% from the field, 41% from 3. I think this is one of the best deals I've seen in a while. For that to be straight up after the year Josh Giddey just had is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. I think that, Alex Caruso is somebody who could take this team to the next level. Now you look at the Thunder's perimeter defenders. On the one hand, you've got Alex Caruso, who they just brought in. You already had Lou Dort, and you have Casey Wallace. These are all very strong perimeter defenders. And I think Alex Caruso is somebody that can take this team to the next level. Some people are still thinking of his Lakers days. He's making a couple catch and shoot threes a game, and he doesn't really have much an offensive game. No, if you watch this guy in Chicago, he's handling the ball for them sometimes. He averages 10 a game, which is very solid for the defense he's offering you. So I think they just gave up a much lesser player for a much better player, and that's why I have this deal in the 3 spot. So now for probably my most controversial take of the video, but I've got Chris Paul to the San Antonio Spurs at the number 2 spot. Now, I know a lot of you might disagree with me on this one, but I think Chris Paul is exactly what the Spurs need to aid, in my opinion, the greatest prospect of all time, aid his development. I think that they struggled a lot with point guard play. They were struggling to get him the ball inside several times when he was open, but I think with Chris Paul, this problem is completely solved. I think that this even allows Jeremy Sohan to go back to his natural position or develop into a guard off the bench. But I think that Chris Paul is exactly what this team needs. He's going to offer playmaking. He's going to offer leadership, mentorship for those young guys. And I think that when San Antonio are winning championships with Wemby in the future, or Wemby is dominating the league, whether it's in San Antonio or elsewhere, we're going to look back on these years and say Chris Paul had a huge effect on this. I think that with Chris Paul coming in this year, I think Wemby could become a superstar in his second year. Obviously, everybody knows about the graphic. Chris Paul makes every team he goes to better. With the Hornets, improved them heavily even as a rookie. So I think that with a generational prospect by his side, I do not think that streak is going to stop, and I think he's going to aid the Spurs a lot and make them a lot better. And finally, at my number 1 spot, I've got Paul George to the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, I know the money was a lot. It's around 4 years, $200 million, I think. But it's Paul George. He's going to shoot the ball well, 41% from 3, 47% from the field. Still gave the Clippers 23 points a game last year. I think that although some are going to be saying, oh, by the end of the contract, it's going to be 37, 38, I think this contract is for right now. Philly needs to keep Joel Embiid happy. Every other day, he's in the media talking about Jason Tatum has a super team. That's why he's winning and I'm not. If I went 5 for 20, we drop out. And I'm like, yeah, I know you would, because you've done it and y'all haven't made it to the conference finals yet. But I think this is the move that takes them to the conference finals, possibly. Now, I know we've said this about Philly in the past. Oh, they can make the conference finals this year. They can make it this year, and they never make it. But I think this could be the move that helps them out a lot. He can play off the ball. He's not going to affect that Maxey Embiid dynamic. He shoots the ball well. He's still a good defender. Maybe not as good as he was at his peak, but he still can guard 1 through 4 without being a liability, especially in those wing spots. He's still a strong defender. So I think that, I think that's a good move for the Clippers, and I think that me personally, this is the move that will get them to the ECF. I have the 76ers in the ECF this year. So, to conclude, my top 5 moves of the offseason are Isaiah Hartenstein at number 5. I think he can help a lot with their rebounding problem. Number 4, the haul the Nets got from Mikal Bridges. I think this helps them recoup some of their future that they lost in that super team era. At number 3, I have Alex Caruso. I think he's one of the best defenders in the NBA and offers them a lot more shooting than Josh Giddey did. I think that was a wonderful trade. At number 2, I have Chris Paul to the San Antonio Spurs. I believe that he can aid them a lot. I think they could slide into a playoff spot this year. I think that he'll bring leadership, mentorship, and get Wemby the ball, which should be number 1 priority. And at number 1, I have Paul George moving to the Philadelphia 76ers on a free agent deal. I think this is the move that gets them over that hump that they've been struggling with in the Joel Embiid era. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with that Chris Paul take. And go follow our socials, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back with another video tomorrow. See you guys then.